this video, I tried to explain all these modal verbs as simple as possible. I tried to not make it so complicated so that you can use them easily in your conversation. First question is, what are modal verbs? Modal verbs are special verbs, and we use them to express ability, possibility, permission, advice, and a lot more. Remember, they always come before the base form of the verb. For example, can go, should study, must eat. Now, first let's talk about can and could. We use can to express ability or permission. For example, I can swim. Here I'm describing that I have the ability to swim. For example, I can drive, I can write. The next one is permission. Can I borrow your pen? Here I'm asking for permission. I'm not talking about ability, it's just permission. Do I have the permission? We use could for past ability or polite request. For example, when I was younger, I could run fast. Here I'm talking about past ability. Maybe at the present time, I'm not able to run that fast. But when I was a kid, I could run fast. The next example is, could you help me please? Here we are using could for a polite request. Remember, could is more polite than can. Alright, the next one is may, might. We use may for formal permission or possibility. For example, you may leave early today. This is a formal permission. I'm using may here to express formal permission. It's like saying you have my permission to leave early today. Or I can use it for possibility. For example, it may rain today. Here I'm just expressing a possibility. Now, when the possibility is less, we can use might. For example, we might go to the beach. Here in this example, I'm not very sure, like we're going to the beach or not. I'm less certain. That's why I'm using might. The next one is should and ought to. We use should or ought to for advice or recommendation. Remember, the pronunciation of the phrase ought to is different when you're using it in a sentence. Like if you're talking to an American, you will never hear saying ought to. They always say oughto, oughta. So Americans usually don't say ought to, they say oughta. Now let's back to the examples. The first one is you should study for your test. Here I'm using should because I'm giving you a piece of advice. Or we ought to help our neighbors. Or we should eat healthy. Here is like advice. Remember that should is much more common than oughta. The next one is must and have to. We use both of them for obligation, but there is a difference. We use must like an internal obligation. For example, you want to go to the gym and you're obligating yourself to do that. No one else is forcing you. You just want to do it yourself. So you say, I must go to the gym. This is internal obligation. However, if your mother is telling you to do it, someone else is forcing you, in that case, you can use have to. Like your mother is telling you, go to the gym, go to the gym. Say, I have to go to the gym. So here is an external obligation. We also use the word must for rules. For example, you must wear a seatbelt. Bonus tip, in a spoken English, have to is more common than must. Must sounds stronger or even more formal. Alright, the next ones are shall, will, and would. Now, shall is mostly used in British English, and it's used for offers or suggestions, like shall we dance? Or shall I open the window? So it's less common in American English, but you might hear it in British British English. The next one is will. We use will for future or certainty. For example, I will call you tomorrow. Here I'm using the word will to talk about future. Or when I want to talk about certainty, I can, for example, say, don't worry, it'll be okay. The next word is would. We use would basically all the time. We use it for polite request, we use it for hypothetical situations that are imaginary or not real, or we use it for past habits. For example, you can say, would you like some coffee? This is very polite. Or you can say, I'd like some coffee. The next example is for hypothetical situation, imaginary situation. Like, if I had time, I'd travel around the world. In this example, I'm using the word would because this is imaginary. I don't have time, and that's why I'm not traveling around the world. But I'm just imagining if I had time, I would travel around the world. So it's just imaginary. We can also use would to describe your past habits. For example, when I was a kid, I would play outside for hours. Here I'm describing a past habit. It's not true anymore. I used to do that. Not doing it anymore in the present time, but this is just a past habit. I would play outside for hours. Now it's different. I don't have time probably. I'm sure that now you know how to use each modal verb correctly and you can use them in your conversation English. Perfect. If this video was useful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you'll never miss another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.